Part 5. How was that? Okay. P's are hard. My day as a senator. Summer 2011 was essentially one long epic fail, but I did make one decent career decision. Justin Fisher and I covered the MasterCard Memorial Cup in Mississauga, Ontario, just prior to the summer. We managed to snag some press passes, in part due to my time with Junior Hockey Magazine. We hung around 3 other people in particular. One was Julie Stewart-Banks, who I had met as a Leafs TV intern. She was doing some reporting for CBC at the time. Now she's a huge deal in the States, with a resume that includes Fox Sports, Barstool, and ESPN. Another was Cam Sharon, a Vancouverite writing for a website I had never heard of called allhockey.ru. Why had I never heard of it? It was a Russian hockey site. Lastly, there was Andrei Osadchenko, who also wrote for allhockey.ru. Cam and Andre went to school together out west, and Andre got a budget from them to travel to the Memorial Cup and talk to the Russian players at the tournament, along with others. Andre approached me a while after to say we should make videos together. I wasn't sure about the idea. I had gotten a few requests like this before, but they all sounded an awful lot like, "Hey, I'd really like to latch onto your audience." When I first met Andre, he was this quiet guy with a thick Russian accent, who I knew very little about. How is this going to work? I thought. Luckily, or unluckily, I had some free time that summer. Screw it, let's try it. The videos were very strange, but I actually really liked doing them because of how different they were. We would talk about the NHL and also the Continental Hockey League, or KHL. Andre even put Russian subtitles underneath so that people could follow along. Looking back, with all of the jump cuts added, I can't believe anybody watched. Andre must have been shy at the World Juniors or something, because I quickly realized he's one of the top 5 loudest, most talkative people I've ever met. Making these videos was an interesting lesson in cultural difference. Andre was a brilliant guy who, while still discovering North American culture himself, actually understood many of the nuanced differences and similarities between the North American and Russian cultures. For example, when I would make a joke in a video, he'd laugh a little, but then he'd explain a way to do it better to make the joke funny to Russians, but also keep it funny in English. He was also way more connected in the Russian sports media world than I thought. Apart from having the inside scoop on stories with legitimate sources, he would tell me about Russian hockey news that nobody in Canada was even aware of. We uploaded the videos to my own YouTube channel for a while. They weren't exactly a hit, but some of them got some laughs, and I started to get a lot more viewers from overseas. At some point in the fall of 2011, Andre asked me if I wanted to see a Senators game in Ottawa. My natural instinct was to say, no thanks. First of all, it wasn't a Leafs game, and second, Ottawa was something like a 4-hour drive away. This wasn't just any road trip, though. You see, Andre knew Nikita Filatov. For those of you who don't remember, the Columbus Blue Jackets picked Filatov 6th overall in the 2008 NHL entry draft. He had all the skill in the world, but things just didn't work out for him in Columbus. He was traded to Ottawa on June 25, 2011 for a 3rd-round pick. In late October 2011, Filatov and Andre had been talking, and, one way or another, Nikita was able to get us tickets for a game if we were willing to make the trip. Of course I was willing to watch a free hockey game. As for the long drive, I actually didn't mind the idea because only about 2 months earlier, I had finally purchased my first car. Why not take it out for a spin, check out a game, and hang out with an NHL player? Steve, didn't you just say you lost your job at Leafs TV? Yep, I didn't know that before I made that purchase, so there's a little extra incentive to polish the old resume. We got tickets for the game on November 5th, 2011, a matchup between the Sens and Buffalo Sabres. We made the trek up to Ottawa along with Andre's girlfriend at the time, Lena. I liked her, but she was sick as a dog and should have never come. She sprawled out on the back seat the whole ride up. For those of you who have never been, the Senators Arena is in a pretty sparse area on the outskirts of town. It's a bit better now, but back in 2011 it was basically in the middle of an empty field. We didn't even realize we were close to the arena until we figured out that the traffic we were sitting in was to get into the parking lot. Seriously, it was pretty much pitch black. No lights, no civilization. Like I said, it's a bit better now. The Leafs were playing that night against the Boston Bruins, so I naturally put on my Leafs jersey to go to the game. Yes, I was that guy. I thought I was so funny until I got to the arena and immediately felt like a total moron. To make matters worse, while the Senators and Sabres were playing an entertaining, closely matched game, the Leafs completely got their asses kicked by the Bruins 7-0, while Tyler Seguin, why did it have to be Tyler Seguin, scored a hat trick. Meanwhile, in the arena we were actually in, we were hoping to see Filatov have a great game. Unfortunately, he played a team-low 8 minutes and 51 seconds, spread over just 10 shifts. After scoring a goal earlier in the night, Derek Roy won the game for the Sabres in the 6th round of the shootout in his hometown. We all still had fun, though. A bunch of Sens fans were making fun of me for my Leafs jersey and how bad they'd lost that night. I took a picture with the Sens fan who had a Danny Heatley jersey on, but he put tape on a few of the letters so it just spelled hate. When Filatov got to the restaurant after the game, he ate like a king. Even if he didn't play much, the guy had just played in an NHL game. Not to mention that coaches had been barking at Filatov to put on weight ever since he was drafted. After dinner, it was time to hit the bar. When we got there, Filatov led us through the main floor to the upstairs. Sure enough, tucked away in a corner were the Ottawa Senators. Whoa, there's Milan McCulloch, I said to myself. Is that Zach Smith pouring shots? That kid looks familiar. I'm pretty sure that's Erik Karlsson. He's supposed to be pretty good one day. Yep. After scoring 45 points as a sophomore, this was the beginning of Karlsson's breakout 78-point season as a third-year player. The team had several buckets of beer up on the bar. Can you just take these? I asked. I took one, and nobody kicked my ass, so that meant yes. Oh yeah, no big deal, just drinking the Ottawa Senators beer. Not since Curtis Joseph had any Leafs fan stolen from the Sens like that. We realized we didn't have a bottle opener for any of the beer. Karlsson was looking around for one. Andre saw this, pulled out his keys, and popped open Karlsson's beer with them. Apparently, Karlsson had no idea you can do that, so he pulled a few of the Senators over and told Andre, "Show him!" So Andre just stood there opening up beer for the Sens. Then there was Kaspar Zdogavich. He was a Latvian winger who rose to popularity because of a few fancy shootout moves that went viral on YouTube. He saw Andre and me with Filatov and asked Nikita who we were. He told him, "Oh, these are just a couple of my friends. They're journalists." Zdogavich immediately got his neck up about being seen partying in front of reporters, but Filatov told him we were harmless, which is true. What's the worst that could happen? They'll write about this in a book one day? Not long after that, Zdogavich had obviously gotten over it because he was doing vodka shots with Andre. A couple giggling girls approached Filatov. Seeing that they were interested in Nikita, in my drunken brilliance, I decided to pretend to be his Russian teammate and talk him up as if he needed a wingman. I put on this terrible phony baloney Russian accent and introduced him. Filatov even played along. Unfortunately, 90% of the Russian I knew was just ridiculous profanity-laden phrases I had learned from Andre. "Buket tibye v ladonya," I shouted at Filatov with a big smile on my face. By the way, that roughly translates to, "Here, take this bouquet of dicks." It's not a common saying, but gosh is it fun. It's so stupid. Okay. Sorry. That's so fucking dumb. Okay. Writing it was absurd, but this was, Filatov just smiled back, wide-eyed, and nodded as if we were having an actual intelligent conversation. He must have been thinking, what the hell is Andre teaching this crazy Canadian? After we drank all of the Senators' beer, Andre, Lena, and I decided to leave Filatov with his new friends and head back to our hotel. We got into a cab. Before we got there, Andre and I were blabbing on about something, probably hockey related. Andre was mid-sentence in his rant when, bang! We jerked forward violently. Our cab had just gotten into an accident. The cabbie had tried to make it through a red so that he wouldn't get stuck in the middle of the intersection, but while he was accelerating, the car in front of him had slammed on its brakes. Andre just continued his rant like nothing happened. Andre, can you take a breath? I yelled. We were just in a car accident, man. Is everyone okay? Our driver had already gotten out of the cab. He told us to get out and waved us toward another cab from the same company that just happened to be driving by. They rushed us into the cab and he drove us back to our hotel. Hey, free ride, we thought. Looking back, our cab driver wasn't doing us a favor at all. We had just been in a car accident. What if one or all three of us had just screwed up our neck? He was just rushing our drunk asses away from the situation before we could ask too many questions. He knew we were too wasted to care. Thank God we were okay. We arrived back at the hotel. They went to bed while I crashed on the couch. At some point during the middle of the night, I heard a voice and woke up. Andre was mumbling. I had no idea what language it was. Russian? English? Vodka? In his mumbling stupor, I heard Andre walking toward me. Oh my God. If this guy does what I think he's going to do, I'm going to have to kick his ass. Well, I wasn't far off. Andre walked over to the hotel fridge that was probably less than 10 feet away from me, opened it, and just rocked a big old piss right in the fridge. With that, he went back to bed. Alcohol, man. The next morning, we took some Advils, but weren't up and running until around noon. Andre got a message from Filatov. Apparently, one of the girls we were talking to the night before had invited him back to her place, and he needed a ride back into town. We were driving down the street, looking for Nikita, trying to figure out which house he was in. That's when we saw him strolling down the street, kicking piles of dead leaves. Once he noticed us, Nikita started in our direction, raised his arms above his head, and proudly screamed, "I am so f***ing hungover!" in Russian. And boy, was he. He looked like death warmed up. I have no idea how these NHL players do it, man. Luckily, the Senators had 4 days until their next game. Filatov did his best to give me directions. Right. I didn't turn. Right. I still didn't turn. Right, bled! He swore at me in Russian. We went back to the same place we had dinner the night before and got lunch. We even saw a few of the Senators there again, looking much less hungover than us. Stefan DaCosta was eating with his parents. Zenon Konopka was at the bar selling patrons on this little device of his that supposedly aerates wine and makes it taste better somehow. That's right, the tough guy with 195 professional hockey fights has his own wine and accessories. Before you go judging Filatov too much, he was 21 years old. You might be thinking, stuff like this is why he didn't work out in the NHL. Trust me, if you knew the partying habits of your favorite players, you would probably experience secondhand blackout. Jared Clinton of the Hockey News wrote about an interview Filatov had given Alexei Shevchenko of sportsexpress.ru. Filatov talked about leaving North America due to financial issues that an AHL paycheck just couldn't cover. Now Filatov is in his 8th straight KHL season and was even a KHL All-Star in the 2016-17 season. After lunch, we made the long drive home. And don't worry, we cleaned up the fridge. I hope you enjoyed that chapter from the audiobook version of my book, This Team is Ruining My Life, But I Love Them, How I Became a Professional Hockey Fan. If you're interested in it, check out the links down below in the description for how you can get the print edition of the book, the ebook, the audiobook, whatever you want. And don't forget to click like and subscribe.